welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore, and it has been a pretty rough week for Cleveland Browns fans. So to talk about all of this is Jimmy Champ, who joins us every Saturday morning. How are you doing today, Jimmy?
I'm good. Busy season has started for the Champ family. Kelly is coaching in the preseason kickoff tournament for the Ravenna Ravens bowling team, looking to defend their conference crown. And I am currently sitting in a parking lot at Kalahari Resorts in Sandusky as my daughter kicks off her all-star cheer season. So busy morning in our household, but everybody got to where they needed to be on time, and I am super excited to talk about the rest of the season for the Cleveland Browns.
Well, first off, good luck to the Ravenna bowling team, and good luck to Emma's cheer squad. Second of all, we have a game tomorrow. We're going to start with the game, and then we'll look ahead and talk about what the Watson injury means for everything. But the most immediate concern is tomorrow afternoon on the lakefront, the Cleveland Browns are hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are 1-point home favorites, minus 125 for their money line, plus 105 for the Steelers. Every time I see this number, it makes me laugh. The over-under is 33, as DTR will get the start for the Browns in place of Deshaun Watson. Jimmy, what are you expecting from DTR?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I think DTR is that much worse than Jordan Love, and the Packers scored points on this defense last week. So I don't know.
I think that's fair. I think the big question is, or not the big question, I think the statement is I don't know, because I have no idea what DTR is going to be. I'm not really taking anything away from the Baltimore game where he didn't even know he was going to play. So I've kind of thought that might actually be a good thing now for him, because he's seen a defense that likes to attack like that. So he's at least experienced it before and had time to digest and process it. Okay, that helps, but I don't know if he's any good. Like, Kenny Pickett looked good in the preseason, so I don't know.
You can't. We know you can only judge it so much, but he didn't look lost in the preseason. He played really well in the preseason. And this isn't a Disney story. This isn't like a Division V walk-on quarterback. He played quarterback in a large school.
Yeah.
He has game experience. It's just he can't possibly be worse than P.J. Walker.
Well, that would be very difficult. P.J. Walker, 5 interceptions in 3 games, and he had a fumble or 2 in there, and he had at least half a dozen 50-50 turnover balls go his way. So that just felt like borrowed time.
The last handful of weeks, at times, Kevin Stefanski, I think, has been doing some of the best coaching and schematic motion and work of his career with the Browns. So I'm hoping because you can't just run the ball. Browns fans.
No, that's not going to happen. Pittsburgh's not really going to let them do that. They're going to make them throw the ball.
While I believe there were definitely times over the last couple of years where a few more runs with Nick Chubb wouldn't have been a bad thing. You have to throw the football to be successful in the NFL. You can't just line up and run no matter how good your offensive line is when it's healthy, whatever. You have to throw the ball. But Stefanski the last couple of weeks has been finding ways to get positive plays out of a short intermediate passing game. So I hope that's able to continue this week. And I hope the kid plays well. Because I think, we both did. You don't know. Nobody knows. He could play just as bad as he did against Baltimore. It could look that bad again. He may also look serviceable to good. And if he's serviceable to good, the Browns could still have a chance to win this game and win future games. Because the one thing about Kenny Pickett, he throws some just horrific passes, but he tends to throw them in the stands or in the field where there's no one there. He hasn't had a lot of turnovers, a lot of game-changing plays.
Well, I think that coaching staff's done a good job pounding into his head, what do we need from you now? And we'll talk about Buffalo later, but I think that's the thing that Josh Allen needs to learn. You don't need to be Superman every play. So
but
can And that's the problem with P.J. Walker. I think P.J. Walker made I don't know how he does it, but he was finding ways to get 20-yard plus chunk plays to Cooper like twice a game. And that's enough. That's enough with this defense to get you in position to win football games as long as you don't turn the ball over. The problem is he had all the turnovers. So if DTR can just be 80% of the passer that PJ was minus the turnovers, and then he runs a little more, so maybe that turns out to be a wash. If he can just be PJ Walker without the turnovers, this team's probably making the playoffs.
Yeah, I completely agree. The defense has to, again, step up and almost go to another level.
Well, I mean, that's the good thing, though. I don't think they have to against Pittsburgh.
That's fair. That's fair.
This offense still isn't very good. The first three quarters, they look mostly awful. I know they were able to run the ball a little bit last week, but we've seen the Browns shut down this running game. Like, nobody's scared of Najee Harris, and nobody's scared of Kenny Pickett throwing the ball downfield. You just have to watch for what we saw in the first game where you fall asleep for a play and they're taking a slant 70 yards for a touchdown.
Yep.
And
it's a lot. It's a lot to ask the defense to be hyper super focused every play because you could lose this game 7-6.
But I think that's where, to your point about Stefanski finding ways to get yardage, not just out of the running game, but out of short, intermediate, and screen passing game, that keeps the defense off the field. It's a lot easier to be totally alert for 80 plays. It's a lot easier to do that than to do it for 100 or 120. Yeah. I don't know how many plays there actually are in NFL games. It's probably something I should know. But what I like that Stefanski has been doing the last few weeks with the screen game is it's making up for the deficiencies that they've had being able to block pass rushers. And when the screen game is working like it has been, now when you do run the drop back pass plays, those guys can't just pin their ears back and come. They got to give it half a step, and that half a step is enough to put somebody like Jedrick Wills, who normally might not be able to make that block, now he's got an extra half second to make that play. And if you give a professional athlete an extra half second, they're probably going to make the play, even if they're not great players. So that keeping the other team off balance is what he's been doing pretty well. It's just a question of what, again, is DTR going to look like? If he looks overwhelmed by Pittsburgh bringing pressure, then it's going to be a long fucking day because they're not going to stop. They're not going to call the dogs off until it's like late in the fourth quarter, and they're still going to be fucking hitting people. They'll let you complete something for 5 yards over the middle, but they're going to do it just so they can hit somebody.
Yeah. Yep.
We didn't make an actual pick. We just sort of talked about what we're looking at in this game. So what do you think happens tomorrow? What do you think DTR looks like, and who wins this game?
Oh, man, every part of my history of AFC Central and AFC North football says the Pittsburgh Steelers win this game on a last-second 50-yard field goal. But I'm taking the Browns. The defense has impressed me the last couple weeks, and I don't really know, like, the things that the Browns were successful doing in the second half last week against a good defense. I don't think any of that is stuff that DTR probably can't do. Like, it wasn't, like, anything crazy. It wasn't a lot of super impressive throws. Like, they should be able to replicate that again. Stefanski's play calling has been pretty good. I love the Njoku screen game that's been working. So I'm going to take the Browns here. I think they're going to get this win.
I think I agree with you, Jimmy. I think Cleveland's going to win this game. And it's because Pittsburgh, I don't think DTR is going to look anything awesome. I think he'll be serviceable. I just don't think this Pittsburgh team's very good. I mean, they beat Green Bay last week, but Green Bay's looked awful against pretty much everybody they've played. And like you said, Jordan Love has looked unplayable at times for large chunks of this season, and he looked like a pretty good quarterback last week against them.
Yeah.
They lose to Jacksonville. That's a good team. They beat the Rams, who they really struggle with teams that can rush the passer, and that's something Pittsburgh does well. They get that crazy win against Baltimore. They get blown out by Houston, and Houston's a good team. Like, that's where we are. Like, we can forget about how many wins we thought they'd have coming into the season and what people like me thought C.J. Stroud would look like. Like, that's a playoff contending team. Like, they're there. They're here. So, and they get that fluky win over Cleveland, and then they got blown out by San Francisco. So I think just a mediocre offense is going to be able to put up enough points for this defense to pull out a win. I do know for certain that whichever team wins this game, the losing team's fan base is going to have a full-blown panic attack because Pittsburgh fans are in more dire straits about their team than Cleveland, even though their situation is better.
Yeah.
Now, they've been trying to fire Mike Tomlin after he's winning games, so it's a weird situation, and these are the two surprise teams to me. It's not necessarily that they're 6-3; it's what they've looked like on the road to 6-3.
The only thing that worries me, though, is these are the games, much like the second Steelers game last year, where Mike Tomlin just gets more out of a group of men than a lot of coaches ever can. Like, they came out in the second game last year and punched the Browns in the face every play and never stopped. Even when the Browns tried to punch back a little bit, they just kept punching. And
Baltimore did that to them, and that put them behind the 8 ball early.
I don't think you won't have the luxury if you get down in this game. Mike Tomlin will not make the coaching errors that Harbaugh made last week.
Yeah, they'll just keep pounding the ball and rushing, and they're going to come after the passer. Like, that's just what they're going to do. They're going to do everything in their power to make DTR as uncomfortable as possible. And they have the guys to do it, and the Browns, even with a depleted line, have found ways to hold up these last few weeks. So that's just another feather in the cap of Bill Callahan, who doesn't get I guess a lot of us probably don't like talking about him for fear that some other team is just going to throw a shitload of money at him and try and hire him away. Like, we all think that guy's great, and he continues to prove it. And maybe we get DeJuan Jones back this week. That would be
huge.
That would be nice because he's just been great. I would really like to see him at left tackle at some point here. That would just be nice just to get some information there. The Browns are currently 6-3, tied with Pittsburgh for the 5th playoff spot. So Pittsburgh won the first game, so they have the tiebreaker right now. The Browns are 6. Houston at 5-4 is 7. And then you have just a morass of teams that we always see this. Denver's 4-5. The Jets are 4-5. The Chargers got to be kicking themselves at 4-5. And then you have Buffalo, Cincy, the Raiders, the Colts are all 5-5. And they're all a half game behind Houston, that's in 7th at 5-4. So the Browns are in great shape. They've got a full 2 games up, and they've beaten some of these teams. They beat the Colts. They beat the Bengals. And they have a good conference record so far. They're 4-2 in the conference so far, which is huge for tiebreakers. So if they get a win against Pittsburgh at 7-3, you're looking at, you need to get to 10. 9, I think, might get you into the playoffs this year with the Joe Burrow injury.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
So I was going to say we're going to play the schedule game. So let's just play the game. So we have Pittsburgh. We think they win that one. And then the week after, you're going to travel to Denver for the 4:00 game. I don't know what to make of Denver right now. They look like they're playing a little bit better. So that looks like it went from a game you would expect to win to maybe more of a 60-40 Browns.
I always personally just...
But it's tough playing there, right?
Playing Baltimore and then Pittsburgh and then traveling to play Denver there. I always thought Cleveland was going to lose that game, and Denver's playing a little better. I think that's a loss. I think the Denver game's a loss.
Yeah. That game scares me for all those same reasons. And if you go back and look, these AFC North teams, when they beat the shit out of each other, they tend to struggle the week after those games. So
Yep.
something to keep an eye on there. Then the week after they go back out to the West Coast, they play the Rams. I think that's a win because I think the defensive line will be able to just dominate that game, and they'll be able to scramble enough points together. Then they're home for Jacksonville. I don't think they can win that game.
No, I don't think so either. I think Jacksonville ran into a super desperate San Francisco team. I don't think Jacksonville's as bad as they played last week. I think they'll lose to Jacksonville.
Yeah, they seem to be that definitive second-tier team where they can beat anybody below them, but they can't beat anybody above them.
Yeah.
Then the Browns get Chicago, and that's a game I don't know what to do with because of the Justin Fields wild card. So that feels like a game that kind of went from I was confident the Browns win that game to maybe it's more of a toss-up that I lean Browns instead of thinking it's a true toss-up. So that seems like a 50-50, 60-40 game. Then you're traveling to Houston. Like Houston looks really good right now. So
that's going to be a hell of a football game. That game's going to have playoff implications.
That's probably the game that you want to circle, Browns fans. If they win that game, that probably gets them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because that's a team you're going to need to beat for head-to-head matchups in tiebreakers. And then the next week you have the Jets, which I didn't think the Jets would be where they are. So if they end up getting to 8-9 wins, I guess we shouldn't be surprised, should we?
No.
But I would think the Browns defense would be able to totally stifle what the Jets would want to do on offense.
Yes. Yeah, I think you beat the Jets. I think you beat the Bears. I think you beat Pittsburgh this week. So that puts them at 9 or 10.
That puts them at 9. And you still have the Rams game that we think they win.
Yeah.
So that gets you to 10 without even talking about the Bengals playing Sans Joe Burrow.
Yeah. So the opportunity is there.
It's really there. And it just comes back to DTR. Can he just be serviceable? Can he be Casey Keenum from 2020?
For the front office, they sure hope so.
Yeah, they've got a lot riding on this, and that's a nice segue to the macro view of what's going on here. They have taken a beating for letting Josh Dobbs go not once but twice. So whatever Josh Dobbs is showing is not something that they thought he could do or was something that they were looking for. If DTR comes out and looks like a pretty good quarterback and somebody that can be your backup, then a lot of that heat goes away, wouldn't you think?
Right. Well, I mean, that has to be like an overvaluation of how DTR played in the preseason. Has to be why they let Dobbs go for a 5th-round pick. Like, there's just no other explanation.
Well, I think there's also the salary. I mean, the cap next year is a mess, so even just saving $1.5 million or something like that is a savings. It's something that can help you maybe sign somebody for the minimum that could help you.
Yeah. But
I also think it's not just what he looked like in terms of production. I think it was how organized everything looked. They trust him to run the offense. He might not be making lights-out plays because he has limitations as a passer, but they trust him to get everybody in set, to actually snap the ball, to not fuck up handoffs, to know where everybody should be. So if that's the case, if he looks competent in those things, that's really what they need to see to justify getting rid of Dobbs. But there is also, like, they just missed it twice, man. Like, it feels like the same thing with James Harrison when they had him in here, and then they don't think he's any good, and then he goes to Pittsburgh and he's a superstar.
I totally agree. The Dobbs thing, like if DTR with a week to prepare looks like, because we know Pittsburgh's defense is going to make him uncomfortable, but you'll be able to tell, I think, even in a game against Pittsburgh, if he looks like the backup or not. And if he does not look like the backup, then the front and they lose the game, and DTR, they lose the game because of how DTR plays. Dude, the fan base is going to go crazy. The front office has got to be just pointing fingers at each other. No, you wanted to trade him. You said we needed that 5th-round pick. You said we needed to shave that $1 million. Like,
yeah,
it's gonna be bad for him. But like I said, we just don't know, and they don't know either. So let's just hope for the best. For a change, I'm going to hope for the best with the Cleveland Browns.
I think the bar has been lowered in terms of what happens with Stefanski and Barry. I think the expectation of making the playoffs is really gone now, and that it's more about playing as hard as possible to win these games. Like if DTR is just bad, like what do you do? You know, it's like the Mac Jones situation in New England.
Right.
Like if he's just going to turn the ball over and look bad,
what do you do?
That's like you can't hold the coach accountable for your backup quarterback just being bad. Like he can't lose his job because of that. That doesn't make any sense.
Yep, I agree.
And if they're not firing Stefanski, they're not going to fire Barry. And Darryl Ryder reported this week that Stefanski's closer to an extension than Stefanski is closer to an extension than getting fired. And I think that's probably how the Browns should look at this, even though it's sort of this double-edged sword that we had. And it was the thing we had with Baker where we realized he wasn't a top 5 guy, but there's only so many of those guys. So it seemed like stability was the way to go. Is that how you're coming down on this, Jimmy, or do you think they should make some big moves?
No, I mean, I've been very clear. I don't think Kevin Stefanski can get it done as a head coach. That is just my opinion. I know there are things he's done the last couple of weeks that have looked really, really good. There have also been things in the last 2 months that have looked really, really bad.
That's fair.
And you have to weigh it all together. Like, I know everybody just wants to look at the way Deshaun Watson played in the second half because they won the game. It was an awesome half. But you put the two halves together, it was a really bad football game for your quarterback. Like, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, those stats that they had, it showed the Browns versus Zach Wilson. Like the Browns quarterbacks as a whole, the quarterback play the Browns have gotten has been worse than Zach Wilson on average for the season.
It's just
and they're 6-3, which just blows my mind.
And it's
we knew it was bad.
It's just one of those things that every year except the COVID year, we have watched Kevin Stefanski do dumb shit over and over again that doesn't work, and he just keeps doing it.
Yeah, I'd like to see him really come out with a good first set instead of being lazy with his play calling or sticking to the script. He's got to come up with a counter right off the bat because Baltimore was all over what they were doing most of that game.
Yep, and it's as we talked when the trade happened, whether Browns fans liked it or not. You trade 3 first-round draft picks for a quarterback. Playoffs and AFC championship games are not acceptable. If you trade 3 first-round draft picks and you do not make it to a Super Bowl, you fail. Sorry, Browns fans. Sorry, Browns Nation. That's what it is. That is what it is, like it or not.
Yeah, this is now 2 full seasons into this, and you've got nothing to show for it out of the guy you put all of this into. And you took the beating publicly over all the awful stuff that Deshaun Watson did. And it shows the problem with going all out in 1 year, because this was the year they cleared cap space for. Everything gets tougher moving forward. I know they've paid a large portion of the guaranteed money that Watson is owed, but in terms of the cap, they haven't accounted for much of that money. They've reduced his salary to $1 million last year, and then they did some finagling to push some more money down the road. So he's counting like $64 million each of the next 3 years. Now, they're going to reduce that number next year as well, but that means they have to tack on extra years to carry the dead cap money over. Which means we may be looking at, they're going to be talking about a Deshaun Watson extension next year. Like, that's what he's going to be playing for next year, is whether or not he gets an extension. So long term, there's just huge ramifications of them not being in a spot to take full advantage of all of their actions this year. And that's when you put all your eggs in one basket for a year, injuries can play a big role. And
they have.
Yeah, they definitely have. And
But we will find, we played the schedule game. Kevin Stefanski has the rest of this season to absolutely change my mind and a lot of people, because I'm definitely not, I don't even know if I'm in the minority of people who just think we've seen too many mistakes outside of the COVID year from Kevin Stefanski to believe he's actually a Super Bowl level coach.
Yeah, I would say it's too many repeated mistakes. He doesn't seem to learn enough from his previous failures. And that was the criticism I had about last week's game, was Baltimore was all over their first two sets of plays. Yep. Like, they knew that the Browns had a tendency to try to cheat for an early screen to try to get an easy first down, and they called that blitz on the edge because they knew that was something the Browns might do. And they did. And just for Watson to not have the presence of mind to make sure that DE isn't coming in like that, I don't know. It just feels like something he should have been watching out for, and it feels like something his coach should have told him, hey, just quick check to the DE. Help. That's what good coaching is. It's reminding your players when they're focused on one thing and really focused on one thing. You want to make sure that, there's a fly in the ointment right here. Like, we'll just give it a quick glance and make sure he's not going to make a play on this. But it just, is that going to happen this game? Because we saw it the first game. They tried to get that cheapo pass to their third tight end or second tight end, and it got taken back to the house because it looked like Pittsburgh was just sitting on something like that. Man, has that ever happened before? A team has had pick sixes against divisional opponents in the first series twice in one season?
It's hard to believe it hasn't.
I mean, with all the passing teams have been doing the last 10 years and combined with the tanking, you would think it has happened, but I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, but this is Stefanski's chance to, because I don't, like a friend of the show, our buddy Luke, who believes he sees a lot of camaraderie with this team, sticking together and fighting for each other, and we'll see what that comes out to on Sunday.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is Jim Schwartz, though.
Yeah, I agree.
It's less Kevin Stefanski and more Jim Schwartz, and maybe some Bubba Ventrone too. I don't know much about how his personality affects that team. So I know they're playing better on special teams, and that's a big part of it.
I'm sure. Yep.
Last week's fumble notwithstanding.
Yeah.
So we do have one game in the books. As we mentioned, the Cincinnati Bengals lost Joe Burrow. Baltimore won this game 34-20. Felt like it could have been a little more. Is this pretty much the end for Cincy, Jimmy?
I think it was probably the end for Cincy, even if Burrow didn't get hurt, just with where they were. The loss, and they haven't had a win in the AFC, like it would. But yes, with Burrow down, yes, and of course they'll end up with like a top 5 draft pick and get another generational talent. So
no, they got way too many wins. They'll be in the teens, but they've got way too many wins already to be a top 5. But they're going to lose one of those receivers. I think it's just what's going to happen with the cap. So, fine. Bye, Cincy. Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see he was okay, because when it happened, it looked like it may have been like really, really bad. So glad to see it wasn't like a super bad situation, but now Baltimore has faced their second really bad injury of the year. So.
Yeah, and that's a big win for Baltimore. They're now 8-3, make up for last week's loss to Cleveland. And that with looking at what Pittsburgh is and what Cleveland is and what Cincinnati is now with their quarterback situations, it looks like Baltimore is going to carry the division.
Yep.
Okay, there are a whole bunch of other games to get to, but there's only one game that really matters beyond the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, and that is our Monday night affair, Jimmy. It is the Super Bowl rematch. They gave us a great game back in February. We'll see if they can give us a great game again. The Kansas City Chiefs are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. They are 2.5-point favorites, -145 on the Chiefs, +122 for the Eagles on the money line. Over-under sits at 45.5. Oh, boy. This is about as big as they come in the regular season, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it might actually be a low scoring affair. I think you might see a lot of jabs, you're not going to want to lose this game on a pick six, something silly. You might get a little bit of fireworks in the second half. This is, in my opinion, this is the best team in the AFC versus the best team in the NFC by far. And I'm picking the AFC. I think the Chiefs win this game by a field goal.
I totally agree. I even agree that I think it'll be low scoring. I particularly think the first half is going to be low scoring.
Yeah.
Because Philadelphia likes to establish the run early, so they're going to limit possessions that way. I take the over on Patrick Mahomes' pass attempts because teams don't have a lot of luck running against Philadelphia's front, and Kansas City don't seem to want to run the ball anyway. So we've seen Andy Reid in these situations have quarterbacks throw the ball 60 times. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens here. Philadelphia's weak in the secondary. That's where they can be got. So expect Mahomes to find ways to hit guys, and I also like Mahomes over for rushing in this game because I think he's going to have to run a lot. I think that's where the Kansas City run game comes from. And this is the type of game that he'll actually look to run in third down situations. He doesn't do it all the time because he's not worried about, like we were talking about earlier, he's not worried about being Superman all the time, but this is a game where he's going to try and think about being Superman because he knows his team's going to need it.
Yeah. Do you think Spags has something special for the brotherly shove?
I do not, because I think it's simple physics. like there's only so much you can do when the physics are working against you. But even if he does have something for the brotherly shove, I would expect that, man, that would be a hell of a thing to save for the Super Bowl. But to give it to him once and try it, and if it worked, and then just not do it anymore. So you give it, you put it out there, and you let other teams figure out ways to do it. That probably would be the smart way to go. Like I don't understand what you can do other than, I don't know, can you go back and find, was it Tony Saragusa and Sam Adams that they had on that Baltimore front, that they just had two dudes that were 350 pounds and you just couldn't move them?
Do you sub in like your biggest offensive lineman? But
here's the problem. Like if the Browns did something like that with Big Thanos, the problem is he's big, but it's just you can't get low enough. You've got to get so low. Like does he just lay down in front of the ball?
I'm expecting Spags to have something. So I am expecting Spags to have something, but I just think, one thing that we feel we know is these are the games Andy Reid doesn't normally lose.
Yeah, coming off a bye.
They're just not.
Philly's also good off a bye.
They are.
I think this is going to be a nice close game. I think field goal at the end or Mahomes drives him down for a touchdown with a little bit of time remaining. The other thing is Jalen Hurts has been not quite as good. He's apparently playing with an injury, and we'll see. Is this a game that he decides he's going to put the cape on and he's going to give it his all? Because Philadelphia knows they have long-term goals, and winning this game would be huge for them because they've got a pretty brutal stretch of games coming up here, and being able to start it off with a win definitely makes it easier to absorb some losses that might come later.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
That's going to be a hell of a game, man.
It is.
The rest of the slate, maybe not quite as inspiring. The next game we'll talk about here is the Detroit Lions, who are right on the heels of Philadelphia for the number one seed in the NFC, are 7.5-point home favorites as they take on the Bears. Minus 420 for the Lions, plus 320 for the Bears on the money line. Over-under sits at 48. I don't know, Jimmy. I guess I'm going to take Detroit here because they seem to just beat up on bad teams, and that's what Chicago is without Justin Fields.
Nah, Bears are going to cover.
You think they cover? Fair enough.
Yeah, they're not going to win. They're not going to win, but they're going to cover. That Lions defense has fallen off. They'll win, but I don't think you can expect them to beat anybody by 7.5 points right now. Teams have kind of figured out what they were trying to do on defense, and I think
that offense is still at home. They're going to put up a ton of points.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers. They are 10.5-point favorites in this game. Minus 600 on their money line, plus 430 for the Panthers. Over-under sits at 42. We're starting to hear the talk that Frank Reich might not be long for the Carolina Panthers. I don't know how this is going to work out for them. I would expect badly. I like Dallas to win by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Frank Reich's going to call plays now. I don't know what difference that's going to make. We told you last week, don't take Dallas money line. Take them with the points. Yeah. Same thing this week. If you're going to put them in parlays, don't mess with the money line. Take them with the points. They're going to beat Carolina by 2 touchdowns. No problem.
And they also have that Miami thing where they blow out bad teams. I like the over this week because with Wright calling plays, I do think maybe they look a little better, but I don't think they're
I don't know if it'll matter. Dallas might score 42 on their own. So.
Well, that's what happened when they played the Giants and ruined my parlay. So.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the Houston Texans vying for a playoff berth, just like Jimmy said before the season. They are 6-point home favorites against the Arizona Cardinals, minus 260 on their money line, plus 210 for the Cardinals. Over-under sits at 48. Jimmy, does Houston keep rolling?
Houston keeps rolling, but I think with Kyler, they played a little bit. They looked a little bit more confident last week. I think Arizona will cover, but Houston will get the win.
Oh, man, I forgot about Kyler. God damn it. All right, I agree. I don't think Houston's good enough to blow out Kyler Murray at home.
No.
I just don't think they're quite there. But, yeah, I do think they win. I like Houston. That minus 260 will be nice in parlays. So I guess that's my way of saying everybody should be careful with this game.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Up next, we have the Miami.
They did lose to Carolina a couple weeks ago. So.
Yes, that is true. They were also getting a whole bunch of smoke blown up their butts, too. So that was their first real taste of that. And we see teams falter with that all the time these days.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the Miami Dolphins hosting the Las Vegas Raiders, who have just suddenly won 2 in a row without Josh McDaniels and Jimmy Garoppolo. Guess it proves those guys aren't very good. The Dolphins are 14-point favorites, minus 900 for their money line, plus 600 for the Raiders. Over-under is 46. This is down a half point in the last day. Jimmy, Miami seems to just crush bad teams, but Vegas might just be mediocre. So what do we do with that?
I think Miami wins this by 17 and they hit the over.
Yeah, 2 big wins in a row for Vegas. I don't see how they're gonna keep doing it because Miami, just like I said earlier with Dallas, they seem to just put up a ton of points against teams that they're better than. They might not be able to beat anybody that's better than them, but they beat up on the teams they're better than.
Yeah.
Up next, we have really a surprising line to me. The Green Bay Packers are hosting the Chargers. This is the Chargers are 3-point favorites, minus 160 on their money line, plus 135 for the Packers. Over-under sits at 44. This felt like it should have been a 5-point game for the Chargers. I think people are overvaluing what Green Bay did last week against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, give me the Chargers here, no problem.
Yeah. Staley, it's always good for a team, though, and this is a game the Chargers absolutely positively have to win. Because if they drop to a sixth loss this early in the season, they're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
A line that just made me chuckle is the Washington Armada taking on the New York Giants. Washington, 9-point favorites. That's what people think of the Giants these days. Minus 440 for Washington, plus 335 for the Giants. Over-under sits at 38. That's a big number to cover for a team that isn't very good, but are the Giants really 9 points worse than the Commanders here, Jimmy?
Yes.
You have no reservations?
Not even a little bit.
What's Tommy DeVito he's not a quarterback. He's just not a quarterback.
No, he should go back to Jersey Shore.
He plays with a chain too, which I found inspiring. I was like, wow, he's just going all in with this, man. I dig it.
Commanders by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I do like the under here. I like a lot of unders on the Giants too because that offense just isn't going to work. It's just not going to work. Up next, the Jacksonville Jaguars are home. They're hosting the Tennessee Titans. Jacksonville coming off just an ass whooping at the hands of the 49ers, but we've seen that happen to a lot of good teams. Jacksonville 7-point favorites here, minus 320 on their money line, plus 250 for the Titans. Over-under sits at 40. Is this a bounce-back situation for the Jags?
Oh, yeah. They're licking their chops. They're going, all right, we get to show everybody we're not the team that San Francisco destroyed last week. So give me the Jags here, no problem.
Yeah, I agree. Jacksonville has just kicked the shit out of. Well, I guess I shouldn't say kick the shit out of. They've had some nice wins. They've maybe underperformed in terms of like the really high expectations, but they beat the teams that they're better than. They've lost to San Francisco and Kansas City, and yeah, that's what happens when you play the teams that are really good.
Yeah, exactly.
And they lost that game to Houston, who always plays them tough in division, and Houston's better than we thought they were when they got that loss. So that's just where it's at. Jacksonville doesn't lose to – they lose to good teams. Tennessee's not a good team.
No.
The aforementioned San Francisco 49ers are home, and they are 12-point favorites against the Fighting Baker Mayfields of Tampa Bay, minus 650 for the Niners, plus 460 for the Buccaneers. 41.5 is the over-under. I don't like this spot for Tampa Bay at all. I think San Francisco continues rolling teams like they were earlier in the year. I think they're over that little – I think that was just a little speed bump, and we'll look back in 2 months and go, man, what the hell happened there?
I'm gonna take the Fighting Bakers to cover this, man.
All righty. You're a braver man than me.
I think San Francisco will win, but I think Tampa will cover this.
I think the pass rush is going to bother Baker, and those guys aren't going to have to worry about Tampa running the ball because they know they don't have a good running game. And they look like they just embrace that philosophy, but it's tough for a team led by Baker Mayfield to beat a defense as good as San Francisco throwing the ball 40, 45 times.
Yes, I agree, but I think this spread is disrespectful to what Tampa Bay has done. So
fair enough. That's fair. Up next, we have an NFC West showdown. The Seattle Seahawks are taking on the Los Angeles Rams. This is in L.A. The Rams are 1-point home dogs. Minus 115 for the Seahawks money line, minus 105 for the Rams. So Vegas is basically telling you to take your pick. It is a 46 over-under. I don't know what to make of this game, Jimmy, because I don't know what to make of either of these teams besides the fact that the Rams don't seem to be able to block.
Yeah, Seattle doesn't have the best pass rush, but I'm going to go ahead and take Seattle here.
This is a kind of a sneaky huge game for Seattle. This is not a game you want to win.
It is. They need to win this game.
Because taking a look at the NFC playoff picture, the Minnesota Vikings are 6-4. They're in the 7th spot, and then you have Dallas and Seattle both at 6-3. Seattle's tied with San Francisco, but San Francisco has the tiebreak right now, so they'd win the division. And then that's it for winning record teams. You have Tampa Bay firmly in 8th place at 4-5, and then Washington and Atlanta are 9-10 at 4-6, and then it's all 3-win teams after that. So
yeah, because
you don't want to lose this game because if you get to 7 wins this week, you're cruising to the 5th or 6th seed.
Right, and really, I mean, in the NFC, like, I don't personally believe the Detroit Lions are better than Seattle or Dallas. In my opinion, I don't think the Lions are better than them.
Well,
but
Seattle
in the
did
NFC,
beat them in Detroit, so there's that.
Like, but if you're not going to win your division, you definitely want to play the winner of the NFC South.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like that.
And I'm sure goal, Seattle's right? still, I mean, they're tied with San Francisco, so I don't think they're going to wind up winning that division, but they should fully believe that the division is in their grasp, and losing this game would really take that away from them.
Yep, so they need it more than LA needs it, so I'm going to go with Seattle.
Yeah, and I think this is an official loser leaves town match for the playoffs, Jimmy. The Buffalo Bills are hosting the New York Jets. The Bills at 5-5, the Jets at 4-5. The Jets won that first game that Josh Allen single-handedly blew for the Bills by turning the ball over left and right. This game finds the Bills as 7-point home favorites. The minus 355 for the Bills, plus 275 for the Jets. The over-under sits at 39.5. You pointed this out in the first meeting that the Jets always play Josh Allen tough. So I'm going to side with the Jets here. Do you side with the Jets here?
Yeah, this to me, I really want to think. I think I want to stay away here, but I'm gonna take the Jets because I don't know if they get any juice from firing Dorsey because I don't really think anything's been Dorsey's fault. So I don't know.
Was it Ken Dorsey's fault they had 12 guys on the field for special teams?
Exactly.
Because that's why they lost that game, and they can't fire Josh Allen because he keeps turning the ball over in bad spots. He keeps trying to do too much. He doesn't understand that you don't have to be Superman every play, and he can't. Nobody can. Nobody can be Superman every play. Like
no,
you can't give 100% on every single play because over the course of a game you're going to wear down and all of that stuff. So knowing when to hold back and pick your spots.
The comp for Josh Allen has always been Brett Favre, but the NFL is too good now. Brett Favre wouldn't be as successful. So
yeah, there's too much scheming on defense. They disguise things too well. And some of the things that were happening with Patrick Mahomes and pushing the ball downfield with breakaway plays and Lamar Allen, like you just can't be Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Like those types of athletes aren't everywhere. Josh Allen can do those things, but even guys that can move a little bit, like Baker can move a little bit, but he can't do shit like that. And then you got guys like Carr and Garoppolo that don't even really move that well at all.
Yep. I don't know if Buffalo loses this game, I don't know if Sean McDermott's job is safe. I don't know.
I mean, if they have a losing record, that should be his job. But I don't know if they would actually do that. He's been really successful. They had the Leslie Frazier thing, a lot of injuries on defense, and it seems like, again, the problem is the quarterback. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, does Brian Daboll wind up back in Buffalo? Is he a guy is he a guy that Josh Allen will listen to, or is he a guy that'll call a game that doesn't allow Josh Allen to do the things that gets him into trouble? Right,
but the thing is, though, I mean, if you look at it, like, I've always thought these last couple of years the expectation the Bills were having was probably too high, but Sean McDermott has definitely entered Marvin Lewis land in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, his biggest playoff moment was in a loss. In a game that they were winning with 13 seconds to go, and just the madness of Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
But I do think if Buffalo holds on for those 13 seconds, I think they win that Super Bowl.
I would agree. But the Bills absolutely, and I still think the Bills need this game more than the Jets.
Oh, whoever loses this game is done for, and especially Buffalo, because they'd be tied 5-6 with the Jets, and they would have lost both. Buffalo, you talked about Cincinnati's conference record. Buffalo's 2-5, and if they lose this game, that drops them to 2-6. Like, you're not beating anybody in the tie breaks there, and the guys that you're going up against, the Chargers are 2-3, Vegas is 3-3, the Colts are 4-3. Houston 3-2, Browns 4-2, Pittsburgh 4-2. Now those records will shake out, but you're already 2 games behind them, and you drop a game here, it's done. It's a wrap.
Yep,
it's a wrap.
So it's a very important game for both teams if they both believe they still can go to the playoff.
Yeah, and if the Jets lose here, I look to see how much they fall apart as the season goes on, because once they're not fighting for the playoffs, the whole we can do it with Zach Wilson thing is going to start to fade away a little bit as guys look to next year.
Yep.
Our last game we'll talk about this week is the Sunday night affair. This sees the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Mile High to take on the Broncos. Denver, 2.5-point home favorites, -135 for their money line, +115 for the Vikings. Over-under sits at 42.5. I'm just going to keep rolling with the Josh Dobbs, man.
Yeah, I don't think.
They feel like they're on a roll.
They do, and they have a good squad. They have good players. They took some weird-ass losses early in the year. I do not think Denver is better than Minnesota. Take the Vikings money line in all your parlays.
Yeah, and even with the 2.5, man, like that I like that, because this could very easily be a 1-2 point game.
Yep.
So yeah, give me the Vikes, man. They're firmly planting their flag in the playoffs, and maybe giving Detroit a little something to think about. They're a game behind in the win column, 2 behind in the loss column. So Detroit is going to have to drop some games, and they have an easier schedule. But you never know. Never know.
Never know.
So the big thing we're looking at is KC Philly, and what does DTR look like when he throws the ball? What are any other final thoughts on this weekend, Jimmy?
I still don't. I guess the only thing that I'm concerned about this week is I still don't understand when they knew DTR had to start that game.
It was Sunday morning. They had the video of it where the coaches were just sort of shaking their head, walking away, going, shit.
Still don't understand how they all then got together and went, you know what, we should do 7-step process.
Yeah.
I still don't understand that. So I hope Kevin Stefanski doesn't do that again. So that's all.
I mean, just run the PJ Walker offense for Dorian
with
Thompson
DTR
and just hopefully he's not.
PJ
I mean,
Walker.
I would assume he's not the turnover machine PJ Walker is. That dude seems to just.
Yeah.
I mean, the ball's always in jeopardy whenever he's back there. It's just amazing. It's like, oh, is he going to fumble it? Oh, is he going to throw an interception? Oh, is it going to get tipped? And it's just, man, you're just always on the tightrope. It just feels tough to play that way.
Yep.
All right, well, a big Week 11, a big test for the Cleveland Browns. This is just another one of those games they usually lose. But last week, they usually lose that game, but they fucking didn't.
So here we go.
# progress. All right, well, thanks for joining me this morning, Jimmy. It's been fun, and we'll see what DTR can do Sunday.
No place I'd rather be, brother. Go Browns.
And I would like to thank all of you for listening. Please give us a like or subscribe to our podcast so you can get our weekly drops of knowledge to help you win money on your bets. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore, and we are no broken legs.